good morning, and welcome back into NFL Daily. I am Tom Downey. We are breaking down the NFC Playoff Picture as we get moving forward into Week 13 with one game left on Monday Night Football. It's an AFC game, so we can break down where things sit in the NFC. Here is the current updated NFC Playoff Picture. The Lions, the number 1 seed, 10-1. The very hot Philadelphia Eagles, 9-2. Seattle now has the 3 seed thanks to their win over the Arizona Cardinals and a loss by the 49ers. Atlanta's still the number 4 seed by, well, it amounts to a game and a half. They have the tiebreaker over Tampa, by the way. Minnesota at 5, Green Bay at 6, the Commanders at 7, Arizona the only other above 500 team, plus others looking on the outside looking in right now. But of note, this is the current AFC playoff picture. 5 versus 6 up for grabs tonight against the Chargers and the Ravens. There actually are clinching scenarios for the Chiefs and Bills this weekend. We will get to that later on. We're not going to worry about it right now because that'll be tomorrow's video. So if you want a look at the AFC playoff picture tomorrow, we'll go in-depth on it just like we're about to do for the NFC. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. YouTube.com/chatsportstv. We'll go from the 1 seed down to some of the others, and we will mention every team, however brief it might end up being. The Lions have the number 1 seed right now. They are 10-1. They are almost assuredly guaranteed a playoff spot. Even if they lose out, it's like an 89 or something % chance they make the postseason, so they're pretty much in. They play the Bears on Thanksgiving. Now, a win alone does not clinch that playoff spot for the Detroit Lions, but for the first time all year, it's clinching scenario season. Let's do it. 2 scenarios for the Lions, a couple of which require the same outcomes. The first of which, you have to beat the Bears. You don't get in otherwise. Cardinals lose to Minnesota. Seems plausible. Niners lose to the Bears. Plausible. Seattle to the Jets. Maybe not so much. Bucks to the Panthers. I feel like Tampa ends up winning that game. There is this one, though, and this requires more steps, but is doable too. Lions beat the Bears, Cardinals lose, Niners lose, Commanders lose, Falcons lose, Seattle loses. This would clinch at least the 7 seed in the NFC. I'm not sure Detroit gets all of those things done, but they are in magic number of 2 at this point. The Eagles, speaking of 2, the number 2 seed right now in the NFC. How about that game from Saquon Barkley? My opponent had him in fantasy. They blew out the Rams, took care of business in that one. They are also almost assuredly in the postseason race, a greater than 99% playoff probability. Of note, they cannot clinch this week, but we're in the end game for the Eagles locking up that NFC playoff spot. So the pin poll on today's video, who will get the number 1 seed in the NFC? The ad comes on YouTube. Take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. The Seahawks, despite not having the best record this year, they are just 6-5 after all. They are the number 3 seed by virtue of that win over the Arizona Cardinals. They have the Jets this week. You would think Seattle can win that game and put them at 7 wins. Then Arizona again, which would be critical for tiebreakers, for playoff spots, for wild card, for the division, of course. So Seattle, there's a lot of teams that are still alive in the NFC West race, and they actually don't have the highest probability yet. So we'll come back to that here in a little bit. But they got a 44% chance. Games against Green Bay, Minnesota, tricky down the stretch, but they control their destiny now. The Falcons, coming off their bye, get the Chargers in Week 13. They have that game and a half lead over Tampa because they swept the Bucs head-to-head. Tricky couple games left, though. Chargers, Minnesota stand out as games the Falcons might not be favored in. There is a scenario in which they fall to 6-7, but then Raiders, Giants, Commanders game could be pivotal, and the Panthers. That NFC South is not quite locked up yet for the Atlanta Falcons. Will certainly be one to monitor as we move forward. With today's show made possible by PrizePicks. It is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. It is available in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. It is the only daily fantasy with an injury insurance policy. so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. In most cases, I'll do just a Monday Night Football PrizePicks slate. But PrizePicks is giving you the half yard from Tyreek Hill on Thanksgiving night. Just put it in every single one of your PrizePicks slates. It's a no-brainer. I'll take the more than Lamar Jackson passing yards and more than Justin Herbert passing yards as well. Download the PrizePicks app over at prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's CLNS to get the $50 guaranteed, whether you win or lose, when you use code CLNS at prizepicks.com/CLNS after you play your first $5 lineup. Let's move to the wildcard teams. And hello, NFC North. How are you doing? The Lions are only, I guess, the game and a half because they have tiebreaker, ahead of the Vikings, which might not end up mattering because they don't play again until week 18. The Vikings, fresh off a fun game, I guess I'll call it, win over the Bears in overtime. Arizona, Atlanta, some key games there for the Vikings. 98% playoff probability here. If they beat the Cardinals next week, we might be in clinching scenario range for Minnesota when we do this video again a week from now. The Green Bay Packers, boy, they beat up on the Niners in that game. That game got out of hand. They just dominated. That was impressive by Green Bay. Hats off to them. Dolphins on Thanksgiving, which probably going to be the best game of the bunch this week. Then the Lions in a key game. Seattle, the Saints, Vikings, Bears. Green Bay's in a very good position to continue to kind of just do what they've been doing, look like a very good football team, and set themselves up for maybe making a playoff run and beat whether the 6 or 7 seed, pulling an upset in the playoffs again. The Commanders still at that 7 seed, but that loss to the Cowboys hurts. That was supposed to be a get-right game for Washington. Instead, I know they scored 26 points. They had 9 until like the final 5 minutes of the game. That was a 13-9 game until the final 5 minutes, which is hilarious. That was a bonkers game. That was one of the wildest games. Like, it was boring through 3 quarters, and then it just like back half of the 4th quarter got ridiculous. They had the Titans. They should win that game. Tennessee going for win, by the way. A bye. Saints, they should win that game. Philadelphia, maybe not so much. Atlanta, maybe. That game might come down to week 18 with a Dallas that's probably going to be officially eliminated by then. And, can you get to 9 wins or 10 wins at that point? That loss hurts the Commanders. That they were taking care of business, beating up on bad teams, and then they lost to a bad team. Will they make the playoffs? Y for yes, N for no. All right. We will look at 4 other teams here, and then we'll come back to the teams that have 4 wins or fewer. The Cardinals at 6-5, that loss hurts. That would have been a big game for them to take a not sizable, but a noteworthy lead in the NFC West playoff race. Now they get the Vikings, might lose that game, and then that Week 14 game against Seattle becomes massive for both teams. The schedule's not that hard. Patriots, Panthers, Chargers are a good team. We'll see if the Niners are in it. More on them in a second here. Cardinals got to right the ship, and I don't know if they can beat Minnesota, but that would make the Week 14 game a must-win for their playoff hopes. Tampa now gets the easy part of their schedule, and this is why they are not out of it in the playoff race for the wild card or even the NFC South. They beat up on a Giants team that may have quit on Brian Daboll. The Panthers, Raiders, they're going to be favored in. Chargers, maybe not. Panthers, Saints, they can get to 9 wins, to 10 wins. They can beat the Panthers for 6, Raiders for 7, Cowboys for 8, Panthers for 9. 10 wins is not out of the range of possibilities for Tampa because the schedule sets up well for them down the stretch. The Rams, meanwhile, a big difference in their playoff probability chances, even though they should beat the Saints. And a big reason why is the schedule. The Bills and Niners still loom early season games. Then, if they're still alive, you beat the Jets, Cardinals, Seattle, down the stretch to either play spoiler or sneak their way into the postseason. That is why the NFC West, all 4 teams are still very much left with at least a 10% playoff chance. It is tricky for the Niners, though. This has not been an easy schedule for them. You lose against the Packers. Your reward is now you get the Bills on Sunday Football, and hopefully Brock Purdy's back. The Bears, you should win that one. Rams, Dolphins, Lions, Cardinals. Those other teams I mentioned, they play 2 or 3 teams that are not going to be in the playoff race most likely. The Niners have the Bears because the Rams will still be in it by then probably. The Cardinals probably will be, or at least might be. And by then, if they're not, you're probably in bad shape. This has been a tough season for San Francisco. Who wins the NFC West? 4 for the 49ers, S for the Seahawks, C for the Cardinals, and R for the Rams. The other teams we have not mentioned, the Bears have a less than 1% playoff probability per next-gen stats, so tough break there, Chicago. The Saints actually have a 4% chance, so good news for you guys there. The Cowboys have a 5% chance because their schedule is easy, but don't fall for the fool's gold there. Carolina is not going to make it. The Giants, by the way, can become the first NFL team eliminated from the NFL playoff race with a loss against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving.